I know I'm late to the party here, but I just saw the Chainsaw Man Reze Arc movie, and damn, this was good, y'all. And I even had high expectations walking into it because, again, I'm late to the party here, so all I've been hearing are the rave reviews, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I enjoyed season one when I watched it. I bet this is gonna be a good time, but no. Like, I was blown away by the artistry and the emotion and just the direction, the cinematography, the composition, the soundtrack. And I don't mean to detach away from anime as a medium because you guys know I love it, but like this was just an artistic good movie. Strip anime away from it, like this blew me away. But y'all, I'm literally like fresh out the theater. Like I got out, I came home, I made some coffee first, but I came home and I kind of just wanted to spill my immediate thoughts, but with the caveat of that, like I think I want to think about this for a while. And for anyone who doesn't know, I have not read the manga. I only just recently saw season one this year. We did a watch party for it in the community, and I really enjoyed it. And because this movie was coming out so soon thereafter, I was like, I'm not going to read the manga. I want to experience like the next part of this story just fresh without any spoilers. So I'm glad I did that. But anyway, that being said, my commentary here is not coming from having read the manga. So I don't know anything that happens. If anything was wildly different in the movie than from the manga, I have no idea about that. Just disclaimer. And while we're on the subject, I do want to read the Chainsaw Man manga. I decided I wanted to do that after I saw season one. But again, I wanted to wait till the movie came out. But two, and I've talked about this before, but basically, as soon as I catch up on One Piece, Chainsaw Man is next on my list. So I do plan on picking it up, but it will be a little bit still. But I'm trudging through One Piece. Like, it'll be sooner than we think. But anyways, wow. All that being said, had no idea what to expect coming into this movie, right? I did know that, like, Reze was the girl, and I also knew that she was the bomb person, just because, I mean, all of the memes, especially over the last week, about like her versus Bakugo. Like, I knew she was a devil or a fiend or something going into the movie, but I don't even really consider that a spoiler. I guess, there is kind of the reveal at the school where she kills the serial killer, and it's like maybe that would have been a bit more impactful, but I think even not knowing that she's the bomb girl going into it, you kind of know that like something might be up. Anyway, point is, didn't know what to expect going into this movie and was very, very pleasantly surprised that like the first half of it was like a totally different genre compared to what I expected from Chainsaw Man. Like the entire first half of this movie did not feel like a shonen battle manga, right? It felt like a slice of life or like a romance manga. And honestly, I was here for it. Like honestly, I enjoyed the first half way more than the second half. And the second half was awesome. Don't get me wrong. Like that action sequence was literally like nonstop. Like you couldn't exhale. It was just constant and it looked gorgeous. Okay, again, do not get me wrong, Mappa just absolutely cooked with the battles and I loved them, but even with that being the case, I liked the first half more, just maybe because it was so unexpected and maybe that wouldn't have been such a surprise if I had been a manga reader. But it was just this great kind of like simultaneous, like really like at least for me as an anime unk at this point, like nostalgic, like kind of getting to witness Denji fall in love, and honestly both of them fall in love, and I'll talk a little bit more about that probably later. And just all of the directorial, that's a word, all of the directorial choices, again, the cinematography, just the artistic choices that were done like in the school segment and then the carnival segment. It very much felt like walking down memory lane. And again, maybe that's how I experienced it, a little bit older now than Denji and Reze. Like I am curious how those of you in the community that are more akin to Denji's age, how that sequence felt to you. But to me, it evoked all of this nostalgia and it reminded me of like being young and in love and like these certain firsts that you're having of like, meeting a girl and like, that first kind of like, oh, does she like me? Oh, she does like me? Like what's going on here? It just, I don't know, it was just so beautifully done and all of those emotions were captured so well. And again, all of that was just so unexpected for me in this movie. I was like, wait, did I come to the right theater? Like, is this Chainsaw Man? And it was so brilliantly kind of leading up to that crazy reveal in the tone shift where, she literally rips out his tongue and it just all goes so dark so quick, and then that leads into the nonstop action like I said before. But again, the first half of the movie was just so well done, and my boy Dennis, man. And I know it's Denji, but again, we watched season 1 as a community recently, and that was just like one of the memes that came from it. We called our boy Dennis here, and he just can't catch a break, dude. I had my fear. And again, I knew she was the bomb girl, but even that stripped away, I obviously had my fears that our boy Dennis was just getting taken advantage of again, which has been the theme of what I'm aware of for Chainsaw Man so far. Makima just completely playing him like a fiddle, using her sexuality. It very much felt like Reze was doing that at first as well. But obviously, or not obviously, but honestly, I did feel like there was some genuine connection here happening as opposed to Makima. Opposed to Makima's kind of manipulation of Denji. I'm losing my train of thought here. Oh, but one thing that randomly stood out to me that like kind of cemented the fact where I was like, yeah, like this definitely is, there's an agenda at play here, was I loved the kind of cut between when she was teaching him how to swim. The spider that was like capturing its prey, and it was like, okay, yeah, like this is Denji falling into that trap once more. Okay, sorry, for those of you who have seen my reviews of stuff for the first time like this, like Attack on Titan or One Piece or season 1 of Chainsaw Man, then you'll know that I just kind of jump around and ramble a lot, kind of just stream of consciousness as I think about things at the top of my mind, especially having, again, just walked out of the theater here. But I remembered the opening sequence of the movie was that black and white dream sequence with Denji. And first of all, again, loved just the artistic direction to start the movie that way, because it was like this ominous kind of tone set for what was to come. Because again, maybe this was explored in season 1. The dream did seem to be familiar. Like, I feel like I remember Denji having this dream before, but I don't remember what it is or what it's supposed to mean. And maybe I'm not supposed to know yet. Like, maybe that wasn't fully revealed in season 1, and I'm guessing it wasn't, considering season 2, even though it's a movie, started this way. Anyway, all that to say is that I still don't really understand what this is or what it means, but it did set the tone for like kind of an uneasiness to start this movie, which again, playing into what I just said about how the whole movie felt like a completely different genre at first, or in a rom-com, you kind of in the back of your mind, you're like, but remember how the movie started? Like, kind of something's not right here. And it was just like a great way to kind of, build that anticipation and that tension leading to that great kind of mid-movie reveal where things just hit the fan. Okay, now very quickly, I just want to breeze past some quick points before we dive into some deeper stuff. And first and foremost, Beam is my goat. What a cool character, man. I love the shark guy. I love his power, how he can kind of like phase through stuff. But I'm wondering, like, what is with his fascination with Chainsaw Man? Makima at the beginning said, like, you look alike or something like that. And I'm assuming this is something that maybe gets fleshed out a bit more as the manga goes on. But I feel like there's something deeper there than just, oh, like, he just likes you for whatever reason. So I'm interested in that and his loyalty to the Chainsaw Man, because I think this is something I talked about back in season 1. But obviously there's something deeper going on here with Pochita, right? Pochita, is that how you say it? And people got mad at me last time I pronounced this. The Chainsaw Devil, okay? Because obviously, like, everyone wants this dude's heart, and he's really, really powerful, and it doesn't seem like, the fear of chainsaws, or however devils work. I might be being influenced by JJK here. He shouldn't be as powerful as he is. So something else is going on there, and I'm wondering if Shark Boy here knows more of that truth, whatever that truth may be, and that's why he's so infatuated with Denji, or is it just because they look alike? And then actually the whole reason they were paired together is because Power kind of had to be put on the sidelines because she needed her blood drained because she's got these extra horns, and I don't remember what's going on there, and maybe I'm not supposed to, but I didn't know if there was like something from the end of season 1 that I had just forgotten, to where like it explained why she was going through this. And if so, y'all feel free to remind me in the comments. But if I'm not supposed to know, please don't spoil it for me. But I was like, yeah, wait, what's going on here? And then last on my list of quick things I wanted to mention is that Aki continues to be just one of my favorite characters. He didn't have the most screen time in this movie, but what was there was really interesting to me. I love the dynamic between kind of his disposition and the angel's disposition, and how, you know, the angel just cannot wait to die, and yet Aki traded some of his own life in order to prevent that from happening, because he just cannot take anyone else dying in front of him. And I'm really interested to see kind of how that impacts the angel, because the angel, at least at the beginning, is very much apathetic, you know, almost nihilistic, again, waiting to die essentially, but like wouldn't put that first human out of their misery, but then later does put the woman out of her misery. So I'm wondering how much of it is kind of like not necessarily a facade from the angel's POV, but how much is just like defensive walls that are put up, versus how much is like true nihilism there. And obviously Aki kind of seemingly punctured through those defenses at the end when he saved his life. So I'm interested to see more of this develop, but also Aki, just the way he just keeps trading his own life. I don't see a happy ending for him, which is tragic, but I'm also kind of coping that this deal he made with the future devil maybe could buy him some more time. I don't know. Okay, so now to dive into all of the freaking illusions that were in this movie, and that's illusions with an A. First and foremost, kind of the most important one is Aesop's fable about the town mouse and the country mouse, right? This is something that was clearly like the bloodline of this movie. You know, do you want to be the country mouse who doesn't have to worry about dying every day, but just kind of gets to subsist on, you know, the ordinary things in life? You know, he doesn't get the fancy meals, but he gets to eat every day. Or do you want to be the city mouse who gets to experience those finer things, have the opulent meals and experiences, but your life's threatened constantly by the city cat and, you know, whatever else, right? And we kind of get to see this explored through various characters like Aki and the angel, like I was just talking about, but more importantly, Denji, right? But also Reze, and to some extent, Makima. But I want to talk more about Makima at the end of this video. But I just thought this was so interesting, right? And I thought this was a great kind of central cornerstone. That's an oxymoron. I thought this was a great cornerstone for the movie, kind of exploring like, what is it that you want out of life? And when you're forced into one role, can you accept that you might actually really be happier with the other one? And I think that was really true with Reze, and that was kind of the crux of her character. And, you know, again, perhaps Denji and perhaps Makima to a lesser extent, but I really felt like Reze was the prism for this because, you know, tragic character, as we find out, at least from a couple lines of dialogue at the very end of the movie, that she was like a Soviet experiment, like a kid that was found, and I'm assuming she was kind of created much like Denji was, even though Denji's was kind of an accident. Hers was intentional to create that kind of bomb devil or fiend. Again, I don't know the terminology that's most correct here, but the bomb devil, I'm just going to say for ease of access here. You know, so she was kind of forced into this city mouse role, if we can call it that, and very much a pawn, very much used. But, you know, I think it's safe to say that she would have preferred to be a country mouse, which leads us into something I alluded to earlier, that I think Reze really did fall for Denji. And I was having those thoughts at the beginning of the movie, and I think it becomes abundantly clear at the end of the movie, especially when she tries to go meet up with Denji, that she is confronting that and acknowledging that, like, oh yeah, like I really do want this. But earlier on in the movie, you know, when at the carnival before the big reveal, she's like, you know, run away with me. And you know, I think she meant it even back then, but wasn't fully prepared to grasp with that yet. And, you know, it's once Denji, you know, kind of saying he wasn't going to do that because he liked his life and his job and all that stuff, that she ripped out his tongue and the action actually began. But I am curious, like, had he say, like, yes, let's do it, would she have been self-aware enough or brave enough in that moment to actually go and try and become a country mouse with him? Now, what's interesting is that later in the movie, she does reveal, once she finds out that Denji is tied to Makima, she's like, oh, we couldn't have run away even if we want to. And that's really interesting. Just real quick while I'm here, I don't think Denji knows if he wants to be a country mouse or a city mouse. I know that he said he wanted to be a city mouse because he likes the action and the good food, but I think a lot of that is directed by his trauma, right? Because Denji has never known peace, and the only peace he has known is since joining the special division and being manipulated by Makima. And this is something Reze even touches on in the beginning scenes where he's like, you know, or she asks like, is it really a good life being in the special division? You know, they're taking you out of school, and he's like, yeah, I get 3 meals a day and I get to sleep on a couch. And she's like, that is the bare minimum, dude. So like, Denji thinks he's living this opulent city mouse life, but he's really not. So, you know, maybe he is a country mouse that's just traumatized, right? But what I will say is I don't think it's fair to just for sure say that, because I just don't think Denji knows, right? He might actually need that excitement and the finer things that the city mouse gets. I guess I'm rambling here, but the point is, I think that Denji doesn't know, and kind of probably this story will be him figuring out who he actually is. I mean, obviously that's what this story is about, so I don't think he's supposed to know, but he thinks he knows. Keep thinking of more things I wanted to say here, but then by the end of the movie, we kind of have this reversal a little bit, right? Where Denji is like, hey, let's run away after he saves Reze, right? But she realizes, maybe perhaps because she's aware of the Makima connection or otherwise, that, you know, that can't be something that we do. So she walks away. Now, again, she does change her mind and run back toward him, which leads to the tragic ending of this movie, which, by the way, I knew there was no way she was making it out of this. Like, you know, it still hurt. It was a gut punch, and I was hoping it wouldn't happen the way it happened. Like, I was kind of hoping she would just leave, which would offer the chance for her coming back. But as soon as she actually tried to go meet up with him at that cafe, I knew it was over. Anyway, I'm distracting myself. By the end of this movie, Denji was flirting with the idea of becoming a country mouse. Like, hey, let's actually run away. So even though his kind of viewpoints had shifted by that point in the movie, I still think that that's not a definitive thing. He is still just confused and trying to figure things out. All this to say, I guess, is that Denji could be a country mouse, could be a city mouse. Who knows? Okay, now that we got our long-ass Aesop's Fable mice yap out of the way, I can talk about the next illusion, which was this painting. Now, if you didn't notice, this painting appeared in the school section at the beginning of the movie. And anytime there is like a realistic depiction of art like this in anime or manga or any medium, really, I'm always like, okay, what's going on there? Because if it depicts a real piece of art from our world, then obviously that was a very intentional illusion, and that's what we've got here. Now, I am curious on whether or not this painting appeared in the manga, or if it's just something the animation team decided to add, but either way, intentional illusion. It's just, you know, was Fujimoto the one that did it or not? But anyways, this painting is called Daphnis and Chloe, and it depicts two characters, Daphnis and Chloe, which are from a Greek short story from like ancient Rome times. And the long and the short version of this story is that Daphnis and Chloe are these basically two orphans, like two people that were just abandoned at birth and had nothing, which very much gives Denji and Reze, right? Both of them had no one. One was experimented on by Soviets, and one fended for himself his entire life until he was basically manipulated by the special division, right? So very reminiscent of those two, and thus very intentional, in my opinion. But essentially what happens in their story is they kind of fall in love, but it's, you know, typical romance story, you know, will they, won't they? It kind of doesn't happen at first. And there's some kind of bad things that happen, but ultimately it's a happy ending. They do kind of confess their love for each other, and they go live a happy life in the country. And so here is like, okay, I see what y'all are doing here. Citing back to the Aesop fable and the country mouse, this is, you know, the happy ending of what could have been for Denji and Reze had they chosen to actually confront their feelings for one another in a, I don't want to say healthier manner, but I'll say a healthier manner. But I mean, they're kids. They can't know, they're not equipped, they haven't had the right experiences in life to handle these things in a proper way. They're all very, very traumatized, right? I'm getting long-winded. Point is, they don't get to become the country mice with the happy ending. They don't get to be Daphnis and Chloe, but perhaps what could have been. Also, now that I'm thinking about it, I didn't know all of that context as I was watching the movie. I just clocked that painting and was like, I'm going to look this up later. But for any art history buffs out there that did recognize the painting and knew what it meant and knew the story behind it, they might have been fooled into thinking that Denji and Reze would get a happy ending because Daphnis and Chloe did. But nope, that would have just been a cruel misdirect. And that leads me to the final illusion I wanted to talk about, which is the movie, the final movie that Denji and Makima go to see, which makes them weep, right? And this was a real movie, The Ballad of the Soldier. And again, I don't know if this exact thing happened in the manga or not. So again, whether or not this was an intentional illusion from Fujimoto himself or the animation team, but that is a real movie, and it's a Russian movie basically about a soldier, and the movie is a lot about hope, but it's honestly, at the end of the day, kind of a very sad and depressing movie about the horrors of war. So look into it if you're interested, but essentially the main character is a lot like Denji in that it's kind of this young kid thrust in this warlike scenario. You could kind of imagine it sort of like Denji in the Special Division, and basically he gets heralded as a hero and is rewarded with a trip to go home to visit his mom. And on the way, he kind of runs into some side quests, you know, helping people, being lauded as a hero. He runs into a girl that he falls in love with, but they ultimately do not get to end up together. And eventually he does make it home to his mom, only gets to see her very briefly before having to head out to war. And like the movie ends with kind of this sombering narration, if you will, that states that, you know, this main character could have been so many great things in his life, but he'll only ever just be a soldier because he ultimately dies in the war, is the implication. And it's just kind of this sad realization about, again, the horrors of war and about all these things you could have been if you weren't kind of stuck in this greater machine of the war, or whatever you want to call it, right? And so obviously you can see all of the allusions there to Denji specifically. The girl kind of to Reze, but she's not really like a one-to-one parallel with Reze at all, but you could just think of their relationship kind of as a parallel because, again, they kind of fall for each other, but they kind of realize, or at least he realizes too late, what she meant to him, and he never got the chance to tell her. And again, since he ultimately dies, he never will. They'll never get the chance at that happy ending. So another great illusion is what I'm getting at. But more importantly, I'm so curious about the choice here of the sequence of movies, and that this is the one that got them both to cry. And I got a lot of thoughts on Makima, but honestly, most of them aren't new. They're the same things I was wondering after season 1, which I did put out a video on my thoughts, much like this video has been, just kind of rambling and sharing my thoughts and theories and analysis. So for anyone that's interested, you can check that out, because I don't want to just reiterate everything I said about Makima there. But I'm just curious about like what's going on there. Who is she actually working for, if anyone? What does she want? But what is clear to me is that she is fully just taking advantage of Denji. Now, could she have some feelings for him, maybe deep down or something? I won't write that off entirely, but certainly not the same way Reze did. And that's clear in how Reze and Makima interact with Denji, right? This is clearly like manipulation through and through. And Reze started that way with Denji, but it was apparent that like she actually did care about him on some levels and could relate to him. Again, they're very much like a Daphnis and Chloe in that they both were kind of these kids who came from nothing and were kind of forcibly thrust into this world, right? And maybe that's true of Makima for all I know, but point is, the way she treats him in Reze, very different. So like manipulation to its core, weaponizing her sexuality, like it's very, 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 very sus. But again, I don't really know what I'm supposed to make of that. She's got the crazy demon eyes, but to my recollection, and this is something I said in my season 1 video, like no one's ever commented on that. So like, I don't know what I'm supposed to think. Like, because she has those eyes, am I supposed to assume she's a fiend or a devil? Like, I don't know. No one's ever said anything about it. But then again, with the way Reze reacted to finding out Denji was associated with Makima, very sus. Like that was enough to make Reze be like, oh, I'm backing off here, right? And Reze is clearly very powerful, associated with the gun devil, right? So what does that say of Makima? And just who knows what? Because also Beam was the one that kind of revealed that Reze was connected to the gun devil, and they were like, Beam, tell us more. And he's like, I can't. Makima made me promise not to. So, like, what's going on there, right? Okay, I kind of lost the plot and what I was getting at there for a minute. So, what I was driving toward was, as we saw Denji and Makima react to these movies, we know that the first 7 movies didn't do anything for them, right? It didn't elicit or evoke any emotion. And we even see Denji, like, react to each one, being like, oh, this one's supposed to be funny, but that didn't make me laugh. And he'd look at Makima and she wasn't laughing either. And she'd be like, oh, well, Makima didn't laugh. She's cute though. And then the next one's like, oh, that was supposed to make me cry, but I don't feel anything. Oh, Makima didn't feel anything either. And that in and of itself was so telling. And I'll talk specifically for Denji, I guess, because I know it's true of him. I don't know what's true of Makima, and we'll touch on that in a second. But for Denji, it's clear that he's just not in tune with his emotions. Like, he's very alexithymic. He basically can't process the own emotions that he's feeling, which makes sense, right? This is a very traumatized, troubled kid who's had a very hard life. It makes sense that he's not the most, again, in tune with his emotions, right? So I'm wondering, is the same true of Makima? Like, again, I don't want to say what happened to her because I don't know, but let's just say, does she similarly, have a hard time processing her emotions, and that's why these things aren't eliciting anything from her? Or is she just mirroring Denji? Is this another manipulation tactic? Denji's not doing anything, so I'm not going to react. And then when Denji cries to the movie, I too will cry to the movie in order to connect with him. Or were her tears authentic? Did that movie actually resonate with her or not? And I don't know. I don't know which of those two paths I think is the case. Nor do I know which of those two paths I'm supposed to think is the case, if either, right? So, like, was Makima moved by the Ballad of the Soldier, or was she just mirroring Denji in order to manipulate him further? Now, if it's just manipulation, fine. Makes sense. That's what she's been doing the whole time, right? But it's not very interesting. And by that, I don't mean it's a poor decision. It could just be her next domino in manipulating Denji, right? But if it wasn't manipulation, and her weeping was a true glimpse at her character, something that we haven't really seen thus far in the manga, then that's way more interesting, right? Because what about the Ballad of the Soldier broke through her strong defense, right? Like, what was it about this story that really struck a chord with her? And that's what interests me. Now, obviously, it struck a chord with Denji as well, but that's a bit less interesting. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, he's obviously not in tune with his emotions, but that doesn't mean he's a robot, right? This got through to him. And like we talked about when I spoke about this movie earlier in the video, there's a clear parallel between the main character of that movie and Denji. Now, I'm not saying, Denji put on his literary analysis cap and recognized the parallels between himself and the main character, but still, like, the story rang true to him. It got through to him. That makes sense, right? But if it really did strike a chord with Makima, why? What about that got to her? I have a hard time thinking it's any relation with the main character that it might have been for Denji. And from the scene we saw in Chainsaw Man, it was about, like, the emotional reunion with the mother and the son. So it's making me wonder, could Makima be a mother, maybe in her previous life? And I don't know if that phrasing even makes sense, but, like, if Makima is a fiend or a devil or whatever, could she have been a mom before that happened to her? And again, I don't even know if that question makes sense, but I'm just wondering, like, what about this got to her, if it did? Bro, classic me. Okay, I come out of the theater, I'm like, okay, I really enjoyed this. Let me make a video with my immediate reaction. And I was thinking, maybe this probably won't be real quick, but maybe I'll keep it under 3 minutes so I can post it as a short. Yeah, right. Here we are, 30 minutes deep. Man, and I honestly first assumed it would be a shorter video because I was like, I really want to let this marinate and process, and then maybe I'll make a longer video on it. But, here we are, I guess. I do still want to let it marinate and process, and maybe I'll make another video on it. We'll see. But yeah, I really liked this movie. And this is one of the reasons I didn't want to read Chainsaw Man before this came out, because I really enjoy getting to have this kind of unbounded speculations and stream of consciousness, which is what I really enjoyed with Attack on Titan and One Piece too, even though I am reading that manga. But it's like getting to experience something without knowing what happens next. You're really free to speculate. Whereas if I'd read the manga, then the review of this movie would be more so like, oh yeah, they adapted it really well. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That was just a random aside, I guess. But I do still plan on reading Chainsaw Man. Anyway, lost my train of thought. I guess that pretty much wraps it up for now. But one other thing I wanted to say is that I loved Reze's character, and like I mentioned, it was clear that like she actually did have feelings for Denji even before she was ready to process them. And one of the ways I really look back on that now is the fact that she taught him to swim. Right? Denji even brings this up at the end of the movie when he's like, "Can you explode when I pull you into the ocean here?" And she couldn't. Right? So a girl sent on a mission to kill a guy teaches him how to swim. Like, she's really defenseless in that scenario, and that says it all. All in all, really enjoyed this movie. Would highly recommend it for those of you that haven't seen it. I mean, I guess if you made it this far and you haven't seen it, sorry for spoiling it, I guess, but go see it. It was really good. Tragic though, definitely gut punch of an ending with Reze not making it out alive. Even though, you know, I knew it was coming. I knew there wasn't going to be a happy ending that in that regard. It still stung. So I'm hoping that, you know, our boy Denji, left alone in that damn cafe with the flowers for her, I hope that I hope he gets his get back, I guess. Like, I hope he gets one over on Makima. I mean, again, I don't really know Makima's full story. Like, not that anything could, you know, make what she did to Reze okay. But anyways, you know, I hope our boy Denji eventually finds out that she didn't just abandon him, that she did choose to come back for him. You know, not that that's a happy ending, but it's at least something, right? So we'll have to see. But if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.